This is Tabletop Babble, and I'm Amber. Today on the show, I talk with game master, role player, Twitch streamer, and comedian Katie Mae, who I'm a huge fan of, and you should be too. She's incredibly funny, creative, and whether she thinks so or not, also insightful. We sat down on October 21st and chatted about how she got started in comedy to getting a degree in it, comedy and RPGs, and being conscious content creators. Hi! Today on the show, we have Katie Mae. For those of you who don't know Katie Mae, can you please tell us who you are and what you do in the RPG space?
I'm Katie Mae. I am the Dungeon Master of Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice. I also am part of a stream team called Indoor Recess. I tried to summarize it in a bio I had to write the other day, and the best I could come up with is a stream team who would like to take you to hell with them. So
Very inviting.
That's how I would define Indoor Recess. We do a show called Mythic Odysseys of Theros over on twitch.tv/D&D. I'm also just a generally around tabletop bud, and I'm excited to be here today with you, Amber.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you right off the bat.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to know why Indoor Recess for the name. Is it because you all Indoor Recess kids?
It was technically Masood's idea, I think. I think it's just because we are all wannabe cool kids who I think weren't cool, who are just like so close to cool. So for me, it feels like Indoor Recess is like cool, but in a way that it's like it's almost there. But also we were the kind of kids who would feel excited by it being Indoor Recess. It's like, hey, I just get to play board games here at Indoor Recess. Like, I was always really jazzed when we weren't allowed to go outside because I got bullied when I went outside. And inside, I got to play Snakes and Ladders.
I have seen you on the internet and have had the privilege to run a game for you now.
Yes, it will have been completed by the time this airs. Future me is crying, weeping at the thought.
And I really wanted to have you on the show because somehow in our interactions online, I found out that you have a comedy background.
Yes, I do. I graduated back some year, 2018. I graduated back in 2018 with the unlikely bachelor's in comedy writing and performance here in Chicago. I
had no idea that was a thing. I did not know that comedy college exists. I don't know how comedians come to be. How do comedians become?
Well, so this was the first ever comedy program in the country, and I did it because I came from a very strong theater background, but was thoroughly traumatized by the edgier parts of theater background living, and I wanted a place to just go be funny. But it's not traditional. I feel like it is perhaps wild, I think is the right word, to have things like stand-up classes and sketch writing classes, but in a world where non-traditional art and entertainment forms are becoming more valued, I thought it was super important to pursue that over a traditional BFA in acting and performance, because I was more interested. I was always told when I was in my fame theater high school that there was a difference between art and entertainment, and that they were there for the artists. And I was like, but entertainment is so much fun. So that was that decision. If you ever wanted to be surrounded by men in a comedy class where you have to hear their jokes being told for the first time, I highly recommend going and getting a degree in comedy.
That is an interesting view. I didn't even think about it. You would say that your experience in the comedy field has been mostly male, higher male percentage?
Well, yeah, I mean that's just the demographic where, especially in Chicago, it's going to be a majority white, majority male experience with pockets of people who have found ways to build places for themselves. And so you just have to figure out how to find those pockets as soon as you can for a safe time. I mean, that's very much the same in the TTRPG industry, though, right?
Right.
You think of D&D as a prime priority white priority male experience. And until you find those safe pockets, that's when you really get to start exploring the hobby yourself, right? So it kind of carries over in the same way.
You said that in high school you were a theater kid.
Yes.
Have you always
the worst of them?
Have you always been a theatrical personality? Is that something you've always been drawn to, or is it something that literally developed in high school?
I feel like for a lot of neurodiv kids, the theater is a safe place. This is a very good place to go when all else has failed. And I guess I was no different. I was a terrible I'm trying to be PG-13. I was a very bad child when I was young. I loved attention. Luckily, it was trained out of me. But I remember there was this one time when I was in San Francisco, and there was this Macy's in San Francisco that has these huge display windows looking out on the sidewalk. And as a kid, I had snuck into the display window and was like putting on a show for the people out on the streets. And I had like gathered a crowd, and it was like my first ego trip. I was just high off my baby's first manic powered trip. And I remember my mom took me back to the hotel, and there was this nice elderly couple, and they were like walking up to the elevator, and they were about to press the door to the elevator. And I stepped in front of them, and I went, "Pretty people get to go first." And I hit the elevator button myself. And my mom died on the spot. Rest in peace. No, she's alive. She's great. But I think the life I've lived has been a very good villain to hero arc trope, in that I've started the worst and now I'm only mildly terrible.
I think that's so funny because, like, for me, I don't like performance per se. It's not something I'm naturally inclined to, but I do like entertaining people.
Yeah.
This is my comedy story. Like, when I realized I can be funny, it's when I was in kindergarten.
I want to hear this. Yes.
I was in kindergarten, and we had just read the story Princess and the Pea. And lo and behold, for lunch that day, we had peas.
Yes, prime bit opportunity.
Yes, bits. And so I decided to put one pea under my butt and sit on it and go, "Oh, I can't feel it. I can't feel it." And kids started laughing.
Comedy gold!
And then I put an entire bowl of peas on my seat and just kept squishing them with my butt, my tiny 5-year-old butt. And I was just eating it up. I loved it. Like, everyone was laughing, everyone was having a good time, but I ended up having to stay after and help the janitor clean up the peas. And I got like a bad, like, frowny face on my like good habits bear or whatever for the week.
All good comedy comes at a price.
True. Anyway, I love bits and stuff. So I want to know for you, what kind of like genre or are you more drawn to, like for yourself for entertainment, and then also that you yourself put out?
Ooh, in comedy forms. That's actually a really genuinely interesting question. Dungeons & Dice and Everything Nice was originally formed by majority women non-binary comedy writing and performance majors who were currently in this space, like trying to answer that question for ourselves. And Carly, she always tells the story about how DDEN began. It was because I was sitting in a sketch. It was like 7 p.m. We were doing a sketch show for our college, and I was sitting there just like with a notepad in my lap writing down all the things I wanted to try, and D&D podcast was just one of the things on the list, and we just picked it. And because it's like you got to figure it out. I don't want to come out with a really controversial statement right here at the top, but I'm gonna say it, and it's that I don't love improv. Because the thing is it's like, it's too open-ended for me in a way that like triggers my anxiety bones.
I can understand that.
In a way where it's like that immediate pressure. And so I was like, man, I wish there was like improv, but with like inside a set world where I had a backbone and like a place to draw like logical decisions from. And then like maybe there was like a fun twist, like something that could change whether things were successful or like not. I'm describing a role-playing game. Oh, like I was just like, that was the conclusion I figured out. And so what kind of comedy do I like is actually hilariously the kind of content that I'm putting out now, which is long form, unscripted content that has a plot and a drive and very real and dynamic emotions and world building and relationships and storytelling. And I'm really lucky that I got to find that very fine needle in a haystack so early on. I feel really bad because one time I went on this podcast that was called Improv Sucks, but it was an ironic title about how much everybody liked improv. And all the other DDN folks, they're so good at improv. They're all incredible. I am okay at best. But everyone, and it was like, talk about like why you love improv. And I was like, honestly, not for me.
And that's so funny because like one of the things I've talked to you about off of this show is how when I started GMing, thought improv was super, super important. And I was thinking improv probably like how you described it, where it doesn't really have like a container, like it's way free form. But all of my GMing improv has always had this framework around it, right? Like the setting, the genre, the characters, kind of, you already kind of know what the world is. So when I'm improving, I have like a pretty good scaffolding already. So it's not 100% free form. Interesting. Because yeah, I definitely, looking at this list of questions, there was improv questions on here. And I remember you saying, I don't like improv. And it's interesting. It's good because, and this is just my experience, a lot of the GMing advice I used to get was improve your improv skills.
Yeah.
But you're saying that what we're doing in D&D isn't like comedy improv.
I almost think of like that improv training as the fine art skill that you then take on to do other art. It's like learning how to use a program. It's like you're learning Adobe so that you can then make your weird videos. It is a skill set that applies to a haunting amount of everyday life activities. Improv, and to give credit to improv, that is such a vague word and so many things exist underneath its title, right? Even like long form and short form and all that different stuff. It is an expansive category, and it fits stuff from very serious to very funny, and it fits all those things. And honestly, I think if you were sitting down for a meeting of the minds, I think someone could make an argument and get away with the fact that a lot of role-playing games are just improv with some extra long rules. So honestly, the difference, it's a very blurred line for me.
In your college career, going back to that, did you take a lot of improv classes, or were you more drawn to sketch comedy? And have you done stand-up?
I had to do a stand-up routine once, and then I never did one ever again. I did a stand-up routine about how Rossetti from Animal Crossing was the foundational beginning of my anxiety issues. And if you can imagine, that didn't like hit a lot of people. A lot of people were like, ooh, I feel that. They were like, what is she talking about?
Who is Mr. Rossetti?
Who is Mr. Rossetti, and how did he hurt this girl? I love me a good sketch comedy. I almost feel like I've had a breakup with sketch comedy since not to talk about it too much, since the election. As part of the comedy program that I did, one of the things that you do is like a semester away at Second City. So you like stop taking your traditional classes and you just go to comedy school every day. And there were like movement classes and improv classes and sketch writing classes and history classes. And you would do that all every day. And I did that when the election happened. And it was a very weird time to be funny. And so I kind of went through a breakup with sketch comedy during then, because I felt like a lot of sketch comedy had been very complicit in us getting to the situation we currently found ourselves in. Not that this isn't, sorry that this is coming up at not a table, in a tabletop podcast, but you're thinking that a lot of late night hosts were complicit in our situation and feeling that, you know, SNL did a lot to hurt the country in terms of complicity, you know, complacency, both of those things, and feeling, God, I don't know how to make a sketch that helps. All I know is how to make a sketch that complains or, you know, feels relatable, but I don't know how to make one that helps yet. And so I think when I figure out how to make one that helps, I'll be able to go back.
I understand that kind of feeling of like complicity, and like also sometimes it's really hard to read what is sarcastic or sardonic. I just recently rewatched all of 30 Rock during my furlough back in April when all of the COVID stuff was starting to happen, and going back and looking at 30 Rock and watching that, a lot of it did feel very like, if you're not in on the joke, this could almost seem like complicit or complacent or hand wavy and also kind of cringe.
Yeah, and I completely agree. A lot of those shows have like a very limited shelf life. Like, oh, I went to go try to go back to How I Met Your Mother. Ooh, could not do that. It's just a lot of it. I think like what we're realizing is, and we're trying to find, and that we're getting mixed up in this concept of like PC comedy and culture, is like you're trying to figure out how to do comedy without hurting people. Because that for the first time is a concern now. That didn't used to be a concern. So how to do comedy without hurting people, and how to do comedy that helps you get to the place you want to see the world. Most of our best comedians are separated commentators on the status quo. And we very quickly, in the sort of content waterfall we've created for ourselves, now that content is easier to create, that's one of the easiest things to do. You do it with one tweet. Everybody does it now. Everyone now has the ability to become a spectator in the world that they're seeing instead of experiencing it. And so in a world full of spectators, the inherent worth of that genre is diminished. It's harder to get to. And that's why when I find good commentary channels, they're my favorite things in the world. It's very nice to see people doing it right. But it's certainly not easy.
To bring it back to the role play space and TTRPG content and actual plays, you know, a lot of times I see actual plays being listed under comedy. You know, The Adventure Zone, one of the first actual plays that I got really into, was listed as a comedy podcast.
Yeah.
And now we have this great gaming structure to help with comedy, talking about being like comedy that doesn't hurt and comedy in TTRPG space. How do you see that connection? Being responsible in comedy in D&D or actual play content, how, in your experience with DDEN, have you already started doing that? Looking back, has it evolved over time?
It is absolutely an evolution. And I think that like a lot of that is been my oops white feminism like brain. It's absolutely a learned process. There's 4 of us. We're women, so it's woke, which is a statement that's not even true anymore. Because like that niche started out very male dominated from the visibility standards. And they were like, we'll do it too. And then you start. And then you don't really look at the concept of races in D&D because everybody else is playing it and it's fine. And, ooh, what voices am I going to give my orcs? Let's not think a second time about it. Oh, why are my PCs killing these things that they're coming across in the name of heroism? I'm sure it's fine. They don't have kids. And like, it's very easy to not take a second thought about these things. And then like there's a second where if you are a responsible creator, it should hit you in the tabletop industry. Like, why are we featuring these people that are considered to be heroes from our artistic lens? Why is the world that we are playing in different from the world we're living in? And am I imagining stereotypes that continue that don't separate us from the cycles of harm we're perpetuating? Have we shed the things that allow us to imagine better universes, or are we still playing into the cycles of oppression that we're seeing, right? And so you have to start like separating, like, okay, well, I still have capitalism in this country. I need to think about that, you know, instead of just like gold pieces that you see like listed for sale in the DMG, like suddenly, oh yeah, it's just assumed that this is going to be like a capitalist zone. It's very easy to ignore, but then like you're 3 months into making a podcast, and then you realize that you have to start thinking about these things some more. And then only then do you begin the process of unlearning all the assumptions that the genre has been able to make up until this point. And that's one of the reasons I do like Twitter. I think Twitter can be a bit extra, but I think that Twitter is really good for like starting those conversations. For like, hey, we're going to have this conversation a bit at a time. Let's really start thinking about the concept of like using races instead of species in the game. You got to promise me I'm making sense, Amber. You would tell me if I wasn't.
You're making sense, because what I got from that, you know, as a content creator myself, starting out 7 years ago, have my friends sit down, we're playing evil characters, and most of our jokes, most of our comedy is literally just punching down, and not good. And, you know, we're small. No one's really going to listen to us. No one's really going to find this, but we do want people to listen, you know, we do. But at the same time, it's like, we're putting that out there. Somebody can find it. We don't know who's going to listen to it or share it. And you have to think about that. Like, even, it's like you said, it's so easy to make content now, just throw it out there. Being a responsible content creator, and then also the responsible comedy inside your framework as well. It's very important. I did not think this conversation would go this way. I like it.
Welcome.
Good.
It's probably just because it's something I think about a lot, about what a creator's responsibility to their community is. And of course in 2020, that's something that you have to think about. Like, you know, you're sitting here and it's like, okay, why am I rolling dice instead of, I don't know, protesting on the street? Right? That's like a question you have to ask yourself actively. Like, I'm rolling dice. What am I gonna do if the war comes? You know? And so it's hard you have to reconcile with like, but like everybody's having that thought right now, right? It's not, it's not just me, where you're like, man, hope I can still roll dice in 3 years. Hope they aren't all gone after the nuclear wars.
When we start using dice as currency to get water, God.
How many grains do you think my multitude of dice would get me? It's, you know, ever since everybody's panicking right now, it's a fair time to look at, you know, artists' contributions to society. That being said, it is a valid form of content to provide a retreat.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Elderwood Academy are artisans who craft amazing gaming products, including dice towers, dice trays, dice boxes, deck boxes, dice, and more. All products are crafted to look like spellbooks, scroll cases, codexes, and other awesome fantasy gear. Dear listener, I'm gonna be real honest here. I'm not much of a dice and dice accessory person, unlike some other co-host I know, cough cough John cough cough. However, I've been taking some peeks over on ye old Elderwood Academy website, and what, pray tell, has caught my eye? Excuse me, there are Acquisitions Incorporated dice trays, and boxes? I love Ac Inc., and especially the C-Team, so think I'm gonna have to get that mini spellbook gaming box. May our labors please you? Oh, they please. Peep that sweet swag and whatever the and more is. Oh, I think I found it. It's a dice catapult. Okay, we're going to have to talk about that next time. Anyway, go to elderwoodacademy.com/don't split and search dice catapult, please and thank you.
And that comes back to being told, I only want to talk to artists, not the entertainers. I love entertainers. I love people who exist to just take you away for a while and take you on an adventure that leaves you in some way different from where you started. Whether it's like happier or more connected to the other people around you, or a new thing you didn't know up until that point, or an emotion you haven't been able to unpack. Like that's the kind of content that really does it for me. What about you, Amber?
Oh, how the tables have turned. I'm being asked the questions now.
When it comes to tabletop content and you are sitting down, why do you navigate towards it?
I enjoy people enjoying spending time with each other and making each other laugh. Going back to my pee story, like I like that. I just want to make my friends laugh so hard they start crying. And so when I go into actual play content where it is people literally just trying to make themselves laugh and have a good time, yeah, take yourself away from the reality of what's going on just for an hour and a half, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. That's what I'm drawn to.
That's my happy place. It's like, I know that DDEN listeners, I know the listeners of the show are like, yeah, Katie Mae is going to take me to a safe place where she's going to tell stories with the people that she loves. It'll be done with all of the care and the love in the world for the people who are listening and the people around her. And that's how I know I'm safe. That means so much to me. And like that's what I'm thinking about when I play games with the people around me.
It's very good.
Anyways, why haven't you kicked me off your podcast yet?
No, because this is really good. I love it because I do the same thing too, where it's like when I sit down at a table to run a game with people, I just want to make sure people are feeling good, comfortable, and having fun. That is first and foremost my priority. And sit down with them. What kind of stories do you like? What do you like to do? What is not okay? What is not good? I want to kind of hear from my players first, right? And then I want to help craft this story, whether it be funny or dramatic. Well, if it's with me, it's going to be ridiculous, in a way that everybody feels good about it and walks away feeling good and not like, oh, what? I didn't like that. That made me feel bad. And that goes for listeners too. As a content creator, I'm very conscious that people are hearing me.
And you should be, because that is your artist's responsibility. I don't know why I'm talking like only content creators are listening to me, but I know that a large majority of people in this hobby get to be both in a really cool way. And so I'm speaking to the artist, to the creator, to the content producer, half of you that is listening right now, and saying that even if it's small, even if what you're making is a tiny morsel that you think will never hit anyone's ears, there's an artist's responsibility. What are you putting out into the world? Think about it. Don't be SNL is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Yes. I mean, we actually had to put a content on one of our games, like not a warning, but like as a group we talked about, hey, all this stuff that's going on in the world right now, let's try not to work it out through the game because, as content creators, especially during the election, we stopped making references to real world stuff in game and making jokes about real world stuff in game because we knew it's not what people like. It's not.
I tried that, but then one time while I was recording Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice, Marianne Williamson came into the studio and I almost died.
Oh God.
When we're talking about traumatic D&D experiences, that's my number one.
Let's not talk about traumatic. Let's talk about fun. I want us to walk away from this podcast feeling good. Can you talk to me a bit about like good experiences that you've had with DDEN, whether it be a like good comedy moment that surprised you?
Oh,
do you have a lot?
I know I just like monologued for a while about an artist's responsibility and all that kind of feral nonsense, but now when I talk about my favorite moments, it's going to be like, oh yeah, when we were doing C2E2 in a panel in front of 300 people, and I played a lady called the Candy Queen, and I made them try to vie for her hand in marriage by shoving whole rolls of Bubba tape into their mouth. Which isn't even rolling dice. It's, can you shove a whole roll of Bubba tape into your mouth? Oh my god. So, I'm not, you know, a tiny bit, so, I'm not calling myself a hypocrite, but I'm saying, you know, you can have many dimensions as a human being. That was a favorite moment of mine. Oh, what else? I live for the flourishing ships on DDEN, none of which have come to fruition yet, but I love that there's a whole channel in my Discord dedicated to the ships on the show. That makes me so happy. We have an episode which has been released by now where I have a player, her character's name is Griana Arande. She is a half-orc butcher shop owner whose butcher shop gets burned down in season 0, who then becomes a vegetarian and tries to become a pop star. And so recently she tried out and got into her first musical, which was Monster of the Musical, which is a very blatant ripoff of Phantom of the Opera. And she is a character who's been kind of flirting with this guy from from a boy band that's really famous. Welcome to my Dungeons & Dragons campaign. We've got boy bands named Chaos. And so she recently went to one of their concerts where he asked her to open for a duet. And that's when I'm a comedian. And so I go to Carly and I'm like, listen, this is a duet. I don't want to improvise it. I want to, let's do something. Let's do something for their duet. And so then I remember the movie A Star Is Born, Amber? With Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
I don't believe I've seen this movie.
This is terrible news because this is going to make a little less sense. Well, it's a movie all about a guy lifting up a girl to stardom, and Lady Gaga is the one who is lifted to stardom. And they sing a very popular song called Shallow, and it was on the top Billboard hits for like weeks, and so that joke I'm backing it up with facts. And so I took that song and I took the Phantom of the Opera main theme and I sang the Shallow song with the Phantom of the Opera lyrics.
That sounds amazing.
And that's coming out this week, and I'm really excited for it. So we released the entire song, the whole 2-minute song, where my player and I sang a duet to those Phantom of the Opera lyrics to the Phantom song. I'm now saying this out loud, and this sounds so ridiculous to be my favorite moment. I'm just really excited for it to hit next week. It's my first ever song release.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I make a lot of bad decisions, Amber. This is a secret about me.
I think this is a great decision.
Thank you.
Did it make you happy? Did you have fun doing it?
Man, I got one of those very rare 2020 serotonin hits.
Ooh, then there you go. Sounds like a great decision.
Absolutely.
I love that kind of stuff. I mean, there's tons of gaming advice out there, right? There's just so much. And for me, I tend to plan out my comedy bits for games most of the time. Like, I know that an NPC is going to be showing up. There's always some sort of thing about them that I have planned to be comedic. Do you tend to do that as well?
I'm more of a person who, when I'm trying to come up with things, I'm like, what do I love? I love reality TV. Cool. This character, it's going to be a love letter to how much I love reality TV. Okay, in what way is that? Oh, I'm just pretending to be Bethany Frankel. Cool. Like, it's very much like that way. I try to write myself little love letters and do the things I like, because I know a lot of the times that my players like them, because I know them very well. And so if I'm able to bring them things that they like and that I know that they can riff off of, I know that they'll be funny, and I get to look like it was just them.
I feel the same way. It's like either I make a character that they're going to love interacting with, or that they're going to hate and despise.
Yes. But they love to hate it.
Yes,
see?
exactly.
So you're still writing love letters. Amber, I have a very important question for you.
Okay, yes.
As a listener, do you, because I've argued about this with members of Indoor Recess before, so I hope you will be here to give the final ruling on it. When you are listening to an actual play podcast, which do you usually find funnier? Jokes that the players tell out of character, or jokes that the characters say in character?
The jokes players make out of character.
What? Really?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's funniest when they're good jokes that the character's making, about the character having a funny moment. But you disagree with me.
I'm sorry. I retcon it. Just for you.
No, you don't have to. No, you don't have to change your mind. There are many
no.
people in Indoor Recess who agree with you. I just stand alone amongst the crowd.
They're both amazing and valuable, but because I tend to enjoy the people playing the game more, I think I end up liking their little riffs out of character with each other. And I especially love, one of my favorite things is when the whole table decides how something is going and we keep building off of each other. And then all of a sudden you have a world building thing. So for an example, my GM from Tales from Oxford, Josh, he was like, okay, you're going to see a wizard. What does he look like? And then we just threw all sorts of crazy stuff and gave him a name, Lormacon, and then it just this world building. And then Josh gets to be that character. And I love seeing the table come up with an NPC and that GM having to then don that role.
Yeah, that is pretty delicious. That is a particular genre that I like to call screwing over the DM. And this is one of my favorite things, because as you can tell throughout the show, I have a very loving relationship, as you do, with my players. I am there for their success. I am there to help them tell the story they want to tell about their characters. You know, I love them. I support them so much. I love to act like they're an arch nemesis. I love that game of the players, spiting the dungeon master. It is the essential power struggle, and I love it so much. Even though I'm nothing but a wimpy little baby who wants my players to be safe. It's so good.
It is. I love that give and take so much. And I especially love, I love it when my players put it on me too, where they just make me have to come up with something on the spot. They ask me a question I obviously wasn't prepared for. Past Amber would have a hard time with that. Now Amber is like, please, talking about us and our game and running the Warren of Petal Grove, the last time when you guys split the party, I was like, oh my god, I have 2 different rabbit groups. What are they going to do? But it comes up with such great comedic moments that...
Let me turn the tables on you, Amber.
Yes.
Oh, I will turn them. See, now I'm interviewing you. How did you go from the person who is terrified to make decisions on the spot to the person who can just make decisions on the spot with confidence? Tell the listeners that they might grace some knowledge from you.
DMing for 3 years experience over time. And then being okay with letting go. Also trusting that my players at the table are here for me too. That even though there is that, like you said, power dynamic of OGM versus players, but ultimately we're a whole collaborative table that ultimately wants to see us all succeed. My players don't want to see me stumble and feel bad and so they're more than happy to add stuff and come up with things or help and give me suggestions or fill that space where I might be, struggling. And so that's how I got there. Trusting my table, a strong collaborative relationship.
That's really what it is, because it is collaborative storytelling. That's this art form. And so, of course, that's going to be the most important part. Amber, you're so wise.
Oh.
It's no surprise they made you the host.
Aw, thank you. I don't feel wise. Most of the time I'm just like, how many goblins can I put into this campaign? And
a wise goal.
How many goblins can I grab?
Goblins.
I don't know what to do. A goblin comes in, trying to sell you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh boy. Okay, let me.
Yeah. Every game I play with Amber, somehow just a goblin Goblin in a sandwich.
Goblin wearing a cowboy hat, giving you a
Vampire
sandwich.
the Masquerade, Goblin with a sandwich. Monster of the Week, Goblin with a sandwich. Yeah, actually, for the Queen, too. Yeah, Goblin with a sandwich. Wow.
Okay, all right. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you have advice for going back to comedy, specifically for content creators?
Yes.
How to get better at it? You know, how did I get better at becoming able to come up with stuff on the spot? Practice. How about specifically comedy?
Well, dear Amber, I do think it's practice.
Oh, is it?
It might be. Because I guess so much of comedy is exploration. So you just got to get to exploring, sooner than later. You can do that in many ways, by actually doing comedy, by reading about comedy, by studying the history, taking classes, find how you learn.
Consume the comedy.
Get to learning. Hey, I'm a sponge. Oh man, I love me a good content. This is just
the chef. I love me a good content.
I love me a good content.
So tell me about content that you love then. Like, I can tell you some of my favorite comedy that I consume is things like Strangers with Candy, Tim and Eric, awesome, so great job. How about you, Katie Mae? What to you is good comedy?
Amber, I've been tracking the content I've been viewing in the last few months. So I'm actually pulling up the content to look at what I've actually consumed in the past little while.
Are you putting this into Notion, perhaps?
I am putting it into the Notion. Man, see, here's the thing is you asked me what comedy... Oh, I'll talk about my favorite comedy right now, but I literally, all in my head was, I've only been watching Gossip Girl, Amber. You have to leave me alone.
Okay.
Which was really bad for me, as it turns out. I put a Gossip Girl line in Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice, to the point where I said it, and then one of my players quietly went, "Was that a quote from Gossip Girl?" And I was like, "Yes,
You caught me.
you caught me." If people are looking for a good little content suggestion, I love me a game. So of course that comes in the form of tabletop games and board games and video games, but also for me that comes in the form of game shows. So that is what owns the majority of my heart. I am particularly into the series long feature. So, a Survivor, a Big Brother, The Challenge, MTV's The Challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Amber, but I tell everyone I come across that it's the best game show and that they should be watching it post haste. And by that I mean it's trash garbage. Only watch it if you like reality TV. And so I've been watching this show called Taskmaster. It's a UK show.
Yes! I love Taskmaster.
Amber, Taskmaster is maybe the best show that's ever been created, because it is the perfect combination of comedy to game. It's God's ratio.
It truly is. Like, I know Wolfmere Kenny, one of the co-hosts for the show, he discovered it earlier this year, and then we've just been watching it.
It's my religion, hands down.
So for the listeners, there is, and Katie Mae, you'll know this one. This made me laugh for 30 seconds straight, crying on the ground. The contestants get these ridiculous tasks that
they're
they
all
have
comedians.
to perform.
They're all UK comedians.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all good comedians. And that's a very important part of this equation.
One of my favorite tasks was they walked into a room that had like Dexter sheets of plastic on the walls. There's a table, and on it was a full watermelon, just a whole watermelon. And this one comedian comes in, he reads a task, eat as much of this watermelon as you can in X amount of time. It was like a minute. And all he did was pick it up and throw it on the ground.
Yeah.
And start shoveling it.
Just eat as much as you can. But that's the thing, is they're such simple tasks. So Taskmaster is you're given tasks and the comedians compete for points about doing the task the best. It can be just bring in the most poetic item, and then the judge will decide who brings the most poetic item. The task can be hide 3 aubergines in a room, and whoever does that the best gets the item. And it sounds so monotonous, but since you have some of the best comedians in the UK doing it, you know that their minds are just twisted, warped mazes of strange, and so it just produces the most delightful comedy I've ever seen.
It's so good. And what's so good about this is you can totally use this for Dungeons and Dragons or puzzles or any sort of tasks too. It's ridiculous. Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I just got so excited because I've also been asking this question to every recent Taskmaster fan I've been talking to. Do you think a US Taskmaster could ever work? And if so, back it up with like 3 comedians.
Because it's going to have to be a network that sells it to the mass American audience, I don't think it would work.
Hot take.
I'm just being real honest. Like, what the general populace of America thinks is funny, it would be horrible, I think.
Yeah, it would be so bad. I'm so glad you said that because I don't think it would ever work. That being said, I do want to make a Twitch Taskmaster so bad and make my friends do tasks and then send me like the videos of it. And then we just do an episode of Taskmaster on Twitch. Like, that's my dream.
I know a person who would be so happy to be involved with that.
Maybe we'll make it happen.
We should. Oh my
I know
God, I'm
Masood's
so
super into it too. So we could just make a Twitch Taskmaster and it'd be the most delightful thing in the world. The great news about this, dear audience, is that the episodes of Taskmaster can be found on YouTube if you're in the United States. So a very free way to binge some content in these trying times.
Watch Taskmaster get better at being funny.
I don't even plug my own stuff.
No, you're like, I'm okay. We can end this show now. Thank you, Katie Mae, for coming on.
Thank you.
Everybody watch.
Go watch Taskmaster.
Watch Taskmaster.
It's real good. It's kept me happy, and that's in these months saying something.
Okay, but for real, Katie Mae, where can people find you?
I like to sort if you'd like to find me by levels of commitment you'd like to make. If you're just interested in hearing my everyday thoughts, like asking you if you think that Fruit Loops should be eaten with chocolate milk or margarita mix, you can come and follow me on twitter.com/OKKatieMae. If you'd like to just catch me streaming video games with some of the best people I know a few times a week, you can hit twitch.tv/OKKatieMae. If you're looking for a casual weekly commitment that's only, I think we're on episode 20. It's only 20 episodes deep. You can catch Mythic Odysseys of Theros that I do with Indoor Recess Crew every Tuesday night on twitch.tv/D&D. I play Daphne, the party maniac satyr, whose goddess is the goddess of fates. She just got a tattoo of the underworld on her back, given to her by her goddess last week. It's wild over there. TK Johnson DMs, and it's a delight. If you want a very soft, queer, funny, heartbreaking, uplifting 120 episode commitment, you can start from episode 0 of Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice. The people who have done it swear that it's worth it. You can go check out our website at dungeons-dice.com. We just did an update. If you want a lower level commitment than that, you can just start at season 1 or just hop into any episode and hold on until you get it. Thank you. That's my level of commitment to come and find out more.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I got to just ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, you should come on and interview me more often.
I would love to.
Thank you for listening. Tabletop Babble is part of the Geekspective Network. Go to geekspective.com to check out all of our other shows or follow us on Twitter at Geekspective. You can also follow the show at Tabletop Babble. You can find me on Twitter at Rocket Orca, Kenny at Volfmyr, VOLFMYR, and John at Crossways GM. Our theme music was provided by the Battle Bards.